Okay, so now we've got a special guest. So one of my favorite peeps. I actually had a chance to work with him, but I got the opportunity to now meet him in person and see his gift. And I know, Lynn Rose, you've also had a chance to work with Alvin.
Yes, I know him through the National Speakers Association. He's phenomenal. He's Canadian's Hall of Fame speaker. And I don't know whether you like the fact that he's Canadian or Hall of Fame speaker better. But yes, a Canadian Hall of Fame speaker and a very special heart and talent, and he's going to light you on fire. Are we ready? Let's hear it for Alvin!
Alvin Law.
Alvin Law.
Thanks,
Yay,
Lynn.
Thank you, Alvin.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right, rock it, baby.
How's everybody doing? That sucked. You tired? Brains full? Ready for a little break? Not yet. We're not done. A couple more speakers after this. I'm going to start out with something that has nothing to do with speaking. You ready? Here we go. Thank you. Do you remember your high school guidance counselor? Do you remember that person? Do you remember what the school was? Do you remember who the face of that person was? Are you too old to never have had a guidance counselor? They really aren't that long-lived. They're kind of a new invention. Mine was a guy by the name of Ken Sherwin. Ken Sherwin was the guidance counselor at the Yorkton Regional High School in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, Canada. $1 for anybody who knows where Yorkton, Saskatchewan, Canada is. Nada. Good. Usually nobody knows where that is. I do. I grew up there in the 60s. Do you remember that little 15-minute block of time you had to meet with your counselor to chart the entire course of the rest of your life? And here's the more important question. What they recommended you do for a career, are you doing it now? I can almost guarantee no. It's funny how that worked. Now, that is not an indictment on guidance counselors. I just think it's an interesting observation. I went in for my 15-minute block of time. It was the fall of 1977. I had to go in to see Mr. Sherwin. We sat in front of his desk, and we talked about different options. And I wasn't really paying attention because I knew what I was going to be. I was going to be a musician because I could do that. And Mr. Sherwin, like anybody else who knew me, found me inspiring. That's really nice. Did you know that inspiring doesn't pay the bills? You have to get a job, he said. I said, yes, music, that's what I'm going to play. And he goes, Alvin, we're very proud of you. You've accomplished great things in your life, but I can guarantee you, you're going to have a hard time convincing people you're more than just a circus act. I know, it was so harsh. Thank God for Ken Sherwin, because he gave me a sense of perspective that I needed in understanding what my future was going to be. His idea, you're not going to believe this, he said, how about a career in broadcasting, Alvin? I went, like on television? He goes, you're kind of ugly for television. No, I was ugly. Let's not be polite about this, okay? You should have seen me in those days. I was ugly. I didn't look like today. I was a lot skinnier, which made me even better looking, I suppose. But it was all the other elements, you know? I had this gigantic head of hair. You know, this was like 80s hair. Remember 80s hair? Kind of made me look like a Pez dispenser or a broccoli stalk. I had really bad acne on my cheeks and neck. You can still see the scars. I had these gigantic teeth that, thank God for orthodontistry. But imagine that one alone. Big teeth, and my name was Alvin. Think about how I feel about the chipmunks. Nevertheless, Mr. Sherwin had a great idea. Not television, but radio. So I went into radio broadcasting. And I got a job at an FM station as a disc jockey. And I got invited to a career fair one day to go out and do my first ever public speech. I went into a music room, as it turned out, with about 100 seventh graders to talk about a career in the radio industry. And I talked like this. I had one of those radio voices from the 80s, and that's exactly how I sounded. So it was a bit of a surprise, I felt. When the audience saw me, they just couldn't stop looking at me. They realized, wow, they're seeing a celebrity for the first time. They're in awe. They must have questions. So I offered questions, and I'd never done this before. I said, any questions, boys and girls? Everybody in the room put their hand up. So I picked a kid in the front row. Young man, you have a question? Yeah, how do you go to the bathroom? Okay, that wasn't a broadcasting question. That was a good question. You're thinking about it right now, aren't you? Needless to say, I could get up here and talk about me. Me. What I've done, what I've accomplished, who I have, really no idea what that is. I don't know what that looks like. I used to, because it was all about what I did. Because you see, I had an identifier. I had a label. And I lived with it from the time that I was born. I don't know if you're familiar with this label or not, but in Canada, in the UK, other countries around the world, we were called thalidomide babies. We were born with deformities due to a morning sickness medication given to pregnant women. Deformed over 17,000 babies around the planet. My arms never grew. Imagine what I have to deal with every single day. Because you can imagine, most people don't see me in a place like this. They see me in real life. And most people, when they see me for the first time, do not look at me and go, dude, you got no arms. That's awesome. No, they just look at me with that look in their face. But I love what happens next. Not because I do anything intentional. It's often accidental. But it is memorable. I do something with my feet. And that changes the moment dramatically. My favorite example is driving a car. That gets a reaction, you can imagine. Now, I'm here in Los Angeles from Calgary, Canada. Flew down yesterday, got to LAX, rented a car. Now, I had a couple of options. Could have booked a limo. You know, big stars book limos. I'm not a big star. I'm from Yorkton, Saskatchewan. I don't do cabs because they never stop when you go. So I rent cars, and I have a car rental while we're here. I steer with my right foot on the wheel, my left foot on the gas. All I need is automatic transmission. I can drive any car. Can you imagine the look you get when you walk up to the rental counter at any airport in the world and you give them your driver's license with your toes and you wait to see what happens next? It's funny. Drive-throughs. Those are hilarious. Can you imagine the look you get when you pull up? That'll be $5. Here. Guy said to me one day, it's funnier if you're in the car behind you. Right, because all you see is the foot going out the window, a couple of feet grabbing my drink, away I go. Is it funny to have no arms? It can be, but it didn't start out that way. Look, you've heard a lot of great speakers today, a lot of amazing stories, a lot of thoughts. Every one of them matters. You know, I think what you need to understand from me is I don't know what's left in your tank right now. I can feel for you. You know, when it comes to this motivation, inspirational business, I find it kind of ironic because we already know these things, don't we? Our heart says we know these things. I knew there was nothing wrong with me, but it took me a long time in my life to understand that because it was all about the label and the real obstacles that were placed in front of me, not because I was physically incapable, but because the world was what it was. I mean, ladies, let's be honest about this. You fought a long battle. And I find it interesting when people say, oh, I miss the good old days. Really? Were they really that good? I don't remember them that way. In fact, it took me till 1985 to start to kind of think a little differently about my life. Now, this is a cheap one, okay? August 23rd, 1985. 10:53 in the morning, actually. My life changed. I'm sure you can relate to this if you've been blessed this way. That's the day that my son Vance was born. So yes, I'm also a dad. Don't try to picture how I did that, just go with it, okay? He was 11 minutes old, and they put him here. He fit here. He doesn't fit here anymore. He's 31 years old. His name is Vance, and I'm extremely proud of him, of course. But you know what's fascinating to me about my son Vance, and again, this is highly personal. The biggest obstacle in my life was not overcoming having no arms. It was raising him. Children are tough, aren't they? It's a job, really. It's not a temporary position. It takes a whole lifetime. But you see, August 23rd, 1985 resonated with me. Again, I hope you can understand that I'm sure everybody can think like this, but for me, August 23rd was the first time I ever actually considered how my own mom and dad must have felt the first time they held me. I was born this way. I wonder how that day went. Plus, my mom was 55 years old the first time she held me, and my dad was 53. And like somebody else who graced the stage today, I was in an orphanage. I was homeless because my birth family just simply didn't want to take me home. Now, is that a sympathy story? Absolutely not. See, I'm going to annoy you now, or maybe not. I don't know how you think. But most of the time, I say things that annoy people. Like, does it really matter what happened to you? Or is what's more important what's going to happen? What is your potential? What your future possibilities are? See, I didn't create that thought. Hilda Law did. She took me home at 55 years old because she had a foster home. And she made me believe in the expression, there's no such word as can't. And we lived it every single day. So I learned to use my feet at a very early age, but that was not the key. I want to tell you two stories, and then I'm going to show you an amazing video, okay? These are two of my favorite stories, and then I'll wrap this up. I think you need to understand, too, this is an old story, and I get that. 1966, I had been using my feet for 5 years. I was completely capable of doing almost everything, and across the street from our home in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, was a school called St. Alphonsus Elementary. I couldn't wait to go there. So Mom and Dad took me for sign-up day, went into the school, met the principal, had a few dainties and donuts and coffee, sat in the office of the principal with the door closed for a very serious meeting about my education. I was pretty sure I was going to go there because, you know, we lived across the street. And the principal basically said I wasn't welcome. He can't come here, he said to my parents. And my dad went, we live across the street. Well, no, Mr. Law, we know where you live. You're not exactly strangers. Well, where's he supposed to go? My mom said. Well, across town where the kids like him go. Mom went, kids like who? Principal, using an old word, we should get rid of this word, said crippled kids like him and pointed at me. Second time. Mom looked at me and said, he's not crippled. Principal just looked at us like there was something wrong with my mom too. Mrs. Law, he's got no arms. What do you call that? Mom went, Alvin. Isn't that a good story? But that's not why I'm telling it to you. Can you imagine that moment in time when the principal did not laugh? He simply looked at my parents very dryly and said, be that as it may, there's nothing I can do. Look, I'm just going to say this, and I don't want to offend you on this one either. I get a little tired of people who complain about our lack of progress and equality. I understand that, but I'm not built that way. I'm built to look at what we've accomplished. I'm built to look at what we've achieved. I'm built to look at how far we've come. Because when we set our mind to it, the key to growth is, of course, based on our own personal journey. But this conference, even though the numbers are not what everybody would have loved, and that's just the way it is, you're still here. And isn't that what matters? Because as an individual, you have great power. But when you put all of you together, the power is immense. What's funny about that day is the principal, I wish you could have seen the look on his face. He just wasn't going to budge. And my dad saw my mom, and my mom was now crying, and my dad was 6'3", and he was an ex-professional boxer, and he loved my mom. When my mom died in 1996, my parents had been married for 66 years. So we didn't like that my mom was crying, so we looked at the man that made mom cry, and he looked back at mom and he said, Hilda, I think you need a moment, dear. Why don't you go back to the library, get another coffee, take the boy, get him another donut. The principal and I, we're going to have a little chat now. Now, I don't know what went on in there, but 20 minutes later, Dad comes out, big smile. Hey, kids, you're going to school here tomorrow. I know. I thought my dad beat up the principal. I get it. You bet. Thing is, my dad didn't beat up the principal because my dad didn't see the value in anger. There's a lot of angry people out there. You guys were kind of angry last fall when such and such got elected. By the way, seriously, you may want to get over that because he's not going away. Just a thought. Not a supporter. I'm Canadian. What do we care? We're going to legalize pot. Yay! Priorities are fascinating, aren't they? Fact is, my dad talked with the principal to come up with an arrangement that would be beneficial for both of us. And because I got to go to school, the obvious, I think, is here, isn't it? I got educated. I went to college. And that's not the point. It's not about me. What I find most fascinating about my life is the little portals, little stories, one more, and then the video. Because I got to go to school, in 5th grade, my mom got a phone call one day. It went like this: Mrs. Law, my name is Blaine McClary. I'm the band director for the Yorkton Band Program. Do you have a son named Alvin? We do. Does Alvin have a talent for music that you're aware of? Oh, he loves music. We've just never seen any talent. Why are you calling? Well, Mrs. Law, all 11-year-olds in Yorkton have to take a music aptitude test, and your son got 96%. Wow. He never gets 96% at anything. I know that's a good mark, Mrs. Law. In fact, do you think he'd like to join the school band? Sorry, school band? Yeah, Mrs. Law. Why, is that odd? Oh, yeah. Well, can I ask you a question? Do you have an instrument in mind for Alvin? You know, normally we wouldn't do this, but I'm kind of inclined to give you a special offer. Can you bring him up to the high school so we can meet and then he can pick any instrument he wants? You haven't met him? No, just got his phone number here. I'm kind of going through a list. Geez, well, you know, maybe you should know this, sir, that Alvin sort of has no arms. That's what she said. Hello, Mr. McClary, are you still there? You know, Mrs. Law, nobody told me that. I'm really embarrassed right now. I wish I would have known that. That would have been good information. I got to tell you, I don't see any way that your son could be in the band. You understand that, right? Mom said, oh, sure, we get it. And he hung up. So what happened? How did I end up playing the drums? Well, Mr. McClary called back 6 weeks later, and it wasn't the drums. It was a trombone. Can you believe that? Somehow Mr. McClary and a couple of teachers at the high school in Little Yorkton, Saskatchewan, mounted a trombone on the side of a chair with metal rods and clamps that I played with my foot. And I hated that instrument at first because it wasn't very cool. I was 11 years old. But I played that every day. Every day. So when I got to be an adolescent and didn't date because nobody wanted to hold this, when I realized I couldn't play sports because I was not athletic, when I realized that I wasn't going to fit, I almost gave it up, almost quit, just about stopped living. That's not meaning I almost took my life. What was life for? But somehow I just kept at it every day, practicing that instrument. In 1978, I was the lead chair trombone player for Canada's National All-Star High School Jazz Band. Don't clap. I was the best in the country, #1. You can look it up. But the reason I said that is not to brag. Every time I think of that story and what it took to be the best, not only did I sacrifice and practice, but every day that I needed to boost myself and remind myself why I needed to go on, it was because of people like Blaine McClary and Hilda Law and people that came into my life that said, no, Alvin, you will not be a thalidomide victim. You will someday be bigger. It was the idea that I could be anything I wanted. And who knew? Thinking of expressions and phrases and terminology may not work for you, but believing in things like there's no such word as can't works for me. In fact, even more importantly, watch this video and you'll see the power of belief.
Yes, I can, suddenly, yes, I can. Gee, I'm afraid to go on has turned into, yes, I can. Take a look, what do you see? 133 pounds of confidence, me. Got the feeling I can do anything, yes, I can. Something that sings in my blood is telling me, yes, I can. I was just born born today, I can go all the way, yes. I can. Yes, 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 I can. Hey, yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can!
Are you ready? I can climb Everest. Yes, I can. I can fight here all night and never rest. Yes, I can. I was just born today. I can go all the way. Yes, I can.
I'm done. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. That played in the Olympic Stadium in Rio de Janeiro for the opening of the Paralympics last fall. It was filmed by Channel 4 London. I was part of that band, but more than anything, I'm part of humanity. Let's keep up the fight, okay, folks? God bless you. Thanks for having me here.